Hey everybody out there in Internet's land, it's me, Francis7, with the second of 3 lessons on how to basically, model in GMax. Well, sort of with a eye for making things in there.com. I tend to blather on about that. Anyhow, in today's second of 3 lessons, we're going to learn about how to weld verts together. We're going to learn how to attach objects together to make two separate objects into one object. We're going to learn a little bit about Boolean Logic and how to subtract one object from another. And we're also going to learn about vector shading. And in the next lesson, we're going to learn all about texturing. Anyhow, let's get started. Hey, and welcome back to our second GMax modeling lesson. Today we're going to start off by creating a box and try and draw it in the center of your world, little box here. We're then going to change the length, width, and height to all be 1, and that's over here on the right. So all 3 of those dimensions. It's going to be a fairly small object. What we can do is we could actually, to make it a knick-knack or something, we could actually shrink it down once we get it all done. We're going to go to the 4 arrow tool. That's the move tool up here, and then down in the bottom left, we're going to make both the X value and the Y value be 0, so that it puts it in the center of our world. So we're going to make both of those 0. There we go. Now it should be in the center of our world. We'll go use Zoom All Extents. That's the one over here on the far right, not on the bottom, but the one right above it. And that should zoom us in so we can see what's going on. Maybe use the hands a little bit, and I'm going to use the scroll wheel too to zoom out a bit here. Whoops, forgot to click on this one here. Yes, there we go. Okay, so maybe use the rotate tool so we get a more 3D perspective. By the way, if you don't like the color that something's coming out, over on the right-hand side, somebody said they had a hard time seeing the lines, there's a little box. If you click this, you can then make it a different color. Let's make it pink. And say, okay, there we go. We got a pink box. It's going to be little pink houses for you and me. All right. Think there could be a song in that? All right. So back to a box. From the top view, we're going to draw a slightly larger, wider, both depth and width, and we're going to make it not as tall, though. This is eventually going to be the roof. Right now, we're going to grab the Select and Move tool and move it so it's sort of on top. Probably want to have a little bit of overlap. Always a good idea to have a little bit of overlap of polygons. It just, so you don't have gaps showing when you finish your model. It's like, you look at it, it's like, oh, I can see right through this because there's a little tiny gap. And it's like, well, yeah, you don't want to see this. So better to have them overlap a little bit. We're going to right-click on this object and convert to Editable Mesh. You guys know how to do that. Every time I zoom in, it seems to crash. All right. We're going to get the Vertex tool over here. That's the dots. And we're going to start moving the top of the roof. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm still in the 4 arrow tool. I'm going to draw a box, and this box will surround the 2 dots. And from the front, it's grabbing these 2 dots. And you can see down here in this view that I have grabbed this dot and this dot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move those dots towards the center of the roof of the house. Then I'm going to repeat the process with the other side, moving it towards the center also. So here's how it works. I grab those, I drag it inwards. I grab the 2 on the right-hand side and I drag them in. One thing you're going to notice is as you're dragging, it doesn't really get rid of polygons. There's still a polygon on this side of the roof. There's 2 on the top, and there's 1 on the other side, which you can't see from this view. So even though I'm dragging these together and it looks like it's getting rid of them, they're still there. They just become very, very, very minuscule. There still has to think about junk like that. So we want to be able to get rid of those polygons. So even though it looks like they're gone, they're still there. I mean, if you zoomed way, way, way in, you could probably see them. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab those. So now I've got all 4 of them. Not just the 2 on one side, but all 4. I drew a box surrounding basically this area up here, and it got all those verts are selected. We scroll down a little bit. There's actually a lot of tools hidden here. The one that we want is under a section marked Weld. All right. And if you've got these dots really close together, 0.01 is probably far enough. Let's see. If it gives you an error message when you click, what we're going to do is we're going to click Selected. And if it gives you an error message saying, hey, there were no verts within that range, that means that basically the verts aren't close enough. And so they didn't get welded. So let's click this. If we don't get an error message, Boom. Okay, there they go. Doesn't look like much has changed. But there's now, instead of 4 verts, now there's one here, and then there's one of them up here, and that's all there is. There's not 4 verts anymore now, there's just one. If you grab one vert, you'll see it'll be able to distort, and it's glued together. It got rid of the top 2 polygons, it got rid of the one on each side, and now we have fewer polygons, which is always better. If you highlight both of these and you made this, I don't know, like 2 meters, we could have, and click selected, it'll glue those other 2, and now we have a pyramid roof. We just got rid of 2 more polygons from the sides, yeah, basically 2 more polygons. So now hey, that's good. So your model is even lower polygon. Maybe you wanted the Snoopy looking house, that's fine too. Feel free to play around with that either way, it doesn't matter. Okay, next step, we're going to learn about Boolean logic. And Boolean logic sometimes leaves some extra verts lying around. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back to create. Ta-da! If you've forgotten, that's the little arrow with the little light next to it. We're going to create a box. And this, I'm going to draw it from the top. And this box is basically going to be a door. I'm going to go ahead and maybe move this door up a little bit so that it's visible. Maybe you want it to go all the way off the bottom. That can cause some weird things to happen. So I'm going to move it up just a teeny bit. And if you'll notice from the side view, it does have to go into the box. This part over here is going to become a hole. So I mean, if you wanted it to look like it goes way far back into the building, you could definitely do that by stretching it out. We could convert to Editable Mesh. You can do this multiple times too, so you could take another box inside and make the whole thing hollow. Maybe we want it to go all the way to the back of the house and look like it's sort of got an interior or not. Maybe not. I don't know. Up to you to play around with that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hold down my Shift key and make some copies. If you can't copy it, you can always right-click and convert to Editable Mesh and do it again, or you can try going back to the Create tool. It'll ask you a question when it's cloning an object. You say, okay. Yeah. It's going to make a copy of it, basically. We convert that one maybe to Editable Mesh, and we make this a little smaller, grabbing the verts in the bottom and the top, maybe make some little windows. Little pink houses. I said that already. Okay, so right-click, convert to Editable Mesh, hold your Shift key down. Shift, when you hold it down, makes a duplicate. Let's drag it over here. Now I've got 2 windows. So now I've got 2 windows on my house. I'm liking the way this is looking. This is pretty good. We're going to take these windows and we're going to subtract them from the house. And once again, they've got to go into the object a ways in order for this to work. Before we actually try this, let me give you an example that you can just watch, and you don't have to actually pause this every 10 seconds and follow along. Don't bother doing this. I'm just going to make a box. I'm going to make a box. I'm going to make it 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. That should sound very familiar. I'm going to take a sphere, and I'm going to make the sphere in the center of my box, and I'm going to make it a little bigger than the box, but I'm going to put it right inside so that what I get is basically this ball is sticking out through this box, maybe even a little bigger. Yeah, that looks cool. All right, so now I've got this 3-dimensional ball sticking out through a box. Okay, here's how the process works. We right-click on the object we're going to keep. It's not going to be subtracted, and we convert it to an editable mesh. So it's currently selected, it's ready to go, and the purple box is going to stay, and the ball is going to be the thing we're going to subtract. That gets a little confusing. So the object you're working with stays. The one you click on later is the one that goes away. And we're going to go up to Create. Ta-da! And you may have noticed there's like 10 million tools in here. And there's a pull-down menu right here. And right now we're on Standard Primitives. Makes me think of natives running around the tropical islands. I know that's kind of tacky, but oh well, anyhow. So Standard Primitives, we pull that down, we say Compound Objects. I'm thinking of witch doctors now, too. Like that song, the witch doctor. Oh, well, anyway. Compound Objects. And now I'm thinking of Hogan's Heroes and like Stalag 13 for some reason. Or maybe Jim Jones. Anyway, compound objects allow you to take one and do something with it. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to do under compound objects. Once again, we're under create. It's the it's this arrow if you're lost. And we went to this triangle, pull down compound objects. Sorry about that. And then we're going to pick Boolean. Aha. Now, I wish I had the ability to insert a picture of the guy, but I don't. Who invented Boolean Logic. It's very cool. You probably had to do this with like Venn diagrams and stuff in math class way back when. And the one we're going to do is we're going to click on Pick Operand B. All right. You don't have to do that right now. You're just watching it. We'll go over it step by step in a minute. So we click Pick Operand B, and then we click on the object we want to subtract. Once again, I can click any of these objects, but it has to be one that's touching. If I click the pink house will go away and everything stays the same because it's not touching this cube. But if I click on the ball, boom. Now, let me zoom in on this here. And now we have a cube with it's got some weird lighting going on. I suppose we could probably do something with vector shading to fix that. But basically we have blown our entire polygon budget. I'm betting this is around, I don't know, 600-700 polygons just to make this one up. Let's find. Shall we find out? Stop. Hammer time. All right, so click the hammer. Polygon counter, you don't have to do that. Now let's take a quick look. Ow, well, I was off by a little bit. 660 polygons. That's not too bad. So, yeah. Count, eat, live, breathe, and count polygons in my sleep. Okay, so by the way, if you right click on it and convert it to an editable mesh, you can see what a mess this particular object has actually become. Probably, yeah. It looks cool. It looks cool. I mean, if you're just going to, I don't know, maybe you can make some modern art out of it, you know, I don't know. Rotate it around a little bit so it's kind of cockeyed and cool, and paint it some way and stick it in the ground, call it modern art, and I bet you could sell that. In fact, I think I'll make an object like that just as soon as we're done here. All right, so we also need to know how to be able to attach objects. Boolean logic works best when you're not subtracting this object and this object and this object, because what it does is it creates more polygons. Polygons are triangles, so if you cut through a triangle to make a square out of it, you end up making a whole bunch more triangles. So it's more effective and efficient if you subtract them all at once. If I was going to make this as a house, I'd probably subtract the inside of the building first. If I was going to do it that way, I probably wouldn't build a real house that way, but for a dollhouse I might. And then I would subtract the doors and windows probably all in one fell swoop. So here we go. Let's do this together. We'll right click on our pink house. We'll convert to editable mesh. Oh wait, you know what? We forgot to glue these things together. We don't know how to do that yet. All right, so let's pick the door, and we'll right-click and convert to editable mesh. And then down a little ways under the verts and all this stuff is a section called Edit Geometry. And under Edit Geometry is this button here, Attach. So we click Attach, and then we click on another object. And then we can click on another object. So, by the way, as I clicked on the door, you'll see I get this white box around it. That's called a bounding box. Sometimes you'll get bounding box areas. That means that something is outside of your model and it really needs to be inside. So anyway, let's go ahead and click on the other one. Here's the other window. And now you can see the bounding box goes around all three of those. So we'll convert that back to an editable mesh, just because I think it's the easiest way of doing that. There are other ways. We'll click on the house. We'll convert it to editable mesh because I like doing that. It's fun. It's good practice. We'll go up to the Create tool, which is once again the little light with the arrow, and we're going to make sure we probably have to pull this down. Compound Objects is the one we want. So from the pull down list, Compound Objects, then we're going to click on Boolean. So Compound Objects, Boolean, and then we're going to click on this one. Can you read it? It says Pick Operand B. All right. We click that one. Now, the house is selected. What we're going to subtract is the group of objects that we attach together. The door, the window, and the other window. And they'll all subtract at once. And I click on the door, or the window, it doesn't matter, any one in the group. Boom. Okay, here's what it's done. It has subtracted into basically a little hole, and it's kind of hard to see right now, but there is indeed a doorway in our house now and some little windows, which we could texture and color in a different way. Which brings us up to our next thing about modeling today, which is basically vector shading. So we're going to right click on this house, and it'll start looking more complicated in a second. As we convert it to an editable mesh, you'll probably start seeing more of the geometry of it. It's kind of complicated, but once again, everything has to be made out of triangles. So, all right, here we go. All right, so we're going to go over here and pick the what do you call this thing? The vert tool. And we're going to go across to our tab panel. By the way, this is something we did in the first lesson. If you do not have the tab panel, you can right click up here in the top right and click on tab panel and it will appear. And this is under the tab called Modifiers, and it's the only one we're going to use under this. And it's right here, and it looks like a picture of a spray paint can with a bunch of blue dots. We'll go ahead and click on that. That's going to bring up some new windows. Let's talk about what they are. First of all, opacity. How thick is the paint coming out? 100%, you're going to find out here. Let me show you what happens. I'll pick a color like red, and I click the paintbrush, and I click, and it's like boom. The next thing you know, everything is red. It's not very subtle, so there's always undo. What you probably want to do is start with about 3 or maybe 5 at the most in this percentage box, and then pick your colors. If you don't like the color, you can click this one to the right and you can sort of mix and match your own colors. So if you want it to be, I don't know, a tint. Once again, this isn't texturing the object. It's for adding like shadows and such in. So for example, let's say that I want to add in some gray shadows. All right. You know what? I didn't grab all the polygons, did I? Let me go back to the 4-arrow tool. Let's right-click and convert to Editable Mesh. We'll grab the Vertex tool, and I'm going to grab draw a box around all the verts, so they're all selected. Now it'll probably be easier to paint. I'll go and click on my little Vertex Shading tool. Once again, that's the one with the picture of the spray can and the dots. And let's try. Let's see. The roof sort of sticks out over the top of the house. Let's take some dark gray. Make it about 3%. Click that little, and you use this one, by the way, the paintbrush. And I'm going to go ahead and paint up here near the top. Let's see, there's some shadows up near the top of the house. Turn it around. Maybe shadow a little bit here. Vertex shading is used on a ton of in-world there objects. And you can use the verts. You can also use polygons too. So let's right-click, show you that. So let's right-click and convert to Editable Mesh, and I'll grab the polygon tool, and I'll unselect everything just by clicking out in the open, and I'll click on just one. What do you call it? One thing. In this case, I'm getting the back here of one window, just the back. All right. If you hold your Control key down, you could actually select a few, or is it the Shift key? I forget. I don't know. Yeah, if you right-click and convert to Editable Mesh, let's see, how do we do that? If you click the back, is it Shift? No, undo that. That was not it. Okay, so click the back one, hold the Control key down. Yeah, it's Control. Then I could grab more than one. So I could grab these 3 surfaces. I could go, yeah, sorry about the confusion there. Yeah, it was Control. All right. And then I could make these, I don't know, a light blue. So let's tint them in. 5% here is a light blue. So I could color that in a light blue. And that's basically got some of those, but not all of them. So that's kind of useful too. So let's go over here and grab these. Same kind of deal. Right-click, convert to Editable Mesh. Grab the polygon tool, hold the Control key down, maybe grab the other 2. So I've got basically what I'm selecting here. Let me zoom in so you can see that. Is these 3 polygons. This one, sorry. Basically, I'm selecting this side, and this side. And they're used this a lot to add in shadows into their buildings. Not so much all shadows, but also where they had windows and there's like a stream of light like on the floor of a building. This is how they would do that. And they would basically make a little dot in the floor, cut out a couple polygons. There you go. So now we could vector shade that. We could tint the roof. We could tint all these things, but very useful for adding shadows in. So let's convert to Editable Mesh again. Grab some I want the door. I want this side and this side. And I want those to be shaded in, I don't know, dark gray. And let's go with 7%. There we go. So the inside's a little darker there. So we haven't textured anything yet, but we've learned how to vector shade objects. Oh, and we really haven't glued these together. I mean, if this is actually a house, remember you can right click on a viewport if you mess it up and go to views and then say what you want it to be. Like this was the front. Let's zoom all to extents here. We'll right click and convert to editable mesh. Always a good idea when you're done. By the way, I've had some issues with basically vector shading stopping working. And what I found I can do is I could create a new file and then merge in these particular objects. So if for some reason it stops working for you all of a sudden, and it won't work again, even if you draw a brand new object and try and vector shade it, what you do is attach all your objects, save them, and then quit out of GMax, start a whole new file, and go to the file menu and merge in the objects from the other file, and then you can vector shade them again. I have this happen quite a lot. I think there's some keyboard command that I click or something that messes it all up. I haven't figured out exactly what. So if you ever do, let me know. Let's see. So let's say I want to add one more object. Let's use a standard object. We'll add a box, and we'll add a little, a chimney. That's good. And we'll use the 4-arrow tool. Just move it up here. Now I got a little chimney sticking out. Now these objects are all still separate, and we need to glue them together to make them into one object. So I pick my object, and I almost always start with, by the way, if you ever use transparent textures, especially with two transparencies, you always want to glue them together first, being the first object. So right click, convert to editable mesh. We don't have anything like that here because we haven't got the textures, just in case I ever forget to tell you later. If you're doing transparencies the old way, where you have two different textures, like a cutout and one with a picture on it, no one uses those anymore anyway. But should you do that, they have to be glued first. It's just a rule. Otherwise, the program just crashes horribly. By the way, I haven't saved it all today. I hope you've been doing that. All right, so I right-click and convert to editable mesh, and I click on Attach, and that allows me to attach any objects in the scene. They don't have to be touching either. I could have like another object sitting way over here. Doesn't matter. I click on it, it attaches that one. Since they're not textured, they're all going to take on this shape. And that's basically it for this lesson. We're going to save this one. We're going to name it House. And we're going to come back next time and we're going to texture this house. And just make sure you save it to some place where you can find it. The desktop. So let's just go ahead and go an example. So File, Save As. Click the little up arrow. Go to like the desktop. Name it House. And click Save. And we're all set and ready to go. And I'll see you next time. Alrighty, welcome back. In the next exciting lesson of my GMax class, we'll be going into all sorts of information about texturing. So, hope to see you then.